Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. This is episode 316. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and we've got some... I gotta figure out... I'm peeking at my microphone, and there we go. Okay. Trying to avoid audio issues. So yeah. We've got some big Magic the Gathering news this week. And then some fun news to coincide with that. So, not included in the news lineup this week is the patch that dropped for World of Warcraft. That, I don't know, whiny Mythic Plus players are all up in arms about it. Due to class balancing... as somebody that's been playing the game since 2007, I say this is nothing new. Balance patches happen and everybody gets upset, and then we all move on with our lives, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, a couple of interesting news topics this week. But yeah, outside of that, it was kind of a light news week. Not really a lot of big stuff happening. But we are, I think, 3 weeks out from the Dungeon Master's Guide. Got this week, yeah, about 3 weeks, I think. So that's what I'm waiting for. 1, 2, 3. Yep. 3 weeks out. Definitely excited for the Dungeon Master's Guide. So, and I seem to have caught some sort of cold from my kids, so I apologize if I sound a little sick. So, why don't we get into this week's topics? Starting with something so fun. So first up, the Assassin's Creed Shadows Collector's Edition. This was a sort of contentious topic before, because it included early access and a season pass. Ubisoft has since reduced the price of the collector's edition by $50 and also stripped out the early access and season pass. And the game was also delayed. Or at least the collector's edition was delayed. The game's delayed. So yeah, just bringing up the topic again of this is a game where it has a release date, and then if you pay extra, you get to play it before the release date. So what that really means is, I don't know, it's... We saw the same thing with the War Within, Warcraft's latest expansion, where they did that of 3 days. But of course, they bundled it in. They bundled that early access in. And yeah, I don't agree with it. In my mind, early access is not a thing that you do with a finished product that is just a little benefit to milk people of more money. Early access is something that is done like on Steam, where you are providing people access to your game as number one, for testing purposes, and number two, as a reward for essentially crowdsourcing your funding a little bit. Like people pay to get in on the iterations in the development process. I think that's fine. There's also problems with that. There's been a number of examples that have shown that there are problems with that process as well. But when I think early access, that's what I think, and that's what, I can agree with. But in any case, Ubisoft has dropped it, presumably due to pushback. Not popular at all. And there's already been a bunch of, for right or wrong, community issues with Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, yeah. And then, like, I don't think it was the statue associated with this edition, but it was like statues statues for the game. Like the company that was producing them ended up like pulling it and redesigning it because they felt that their design was insensitive, as it included like a broken, burnt, I forget the name of it, but the gates, as they felt that it was disrespectful to sort of a post-World War II Japan. So yeah. So if you were looking forward to the collector's edition, hopefully, my hope is that if people already purchased it, that they get like a $50 credit or a $50 refund. But I don't know if it had been on sale yet. So yeah, that's that for the Assassin's Creed Shadows Collector's Edition. Next up, here's the big one. Now, for those who are watching the live stream, I have a picture of a Moogle in a mailman outfit. And you might be thinking, Sean, what does this have to do with Magic the Gathering? Well, Polygon reports that with the upcoming Final Fantasy set, Universes Beyond cards will be legal in all formats. So, to reiterate, all formats. That means standard, that means modern, pioneer, commander, vintage, legacy, everything. And to top it off, the release schedule for sets will be up to 6 a year. So literally every other month we'll have a full set release. Upcoming sets include Final Fantasy, Innistrad Remastered, Aetherdrift, Tarkir Dragonstorm, Edge of Eternities, and Spider-Man. This is alongside a SpongeBob SquarePants Secret Lair. Everybody thought it was a joke. Not a joke. So this is I've got some thoughts on this. And there is another bit of Commander news, but I want to touch on this first. I am not a person who has a problem with Universes Beyond. I will say, I think SpongeBob is a weird choice. I think, I also think like The Walking Dead was a weird choice as well. Stranger Things, I think was a bit of an odd choice, but at least that has like Dungeons and Dragons tie-ins. And I think especially like being so early, The Walking Dead was like a weird one. in general, I don't mind Universes Beyond. But I also, the moment Wizards started doing, and I'm in the minority on this. The moment Wizards moved from like the Urza, Weatherlight, Yawgmoth story to, what was it, Gatewatch and sort of Team Planeswalkers and stuff, I was out. I was not interested in the story anymore. So actually, I need to take a quick break. Be right back. A few moments later. Okay. Thank you for your patience. I sincerely apologize. I had a minor crisis that needed to be dealt with. So yeah, Universes Beyond. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the concept in general. And as I said, Magic for me, story-wise, kind of stopped being interested. I wasn't sold on new Phyrexia. And honestly, like, having so many Planeswalkers, I don't care. So Universes Beyond actually got, like, Universes Beyond, by virtue of the Dungeons and Dragons sets, and Ixalan were kind of what got me back into playing Magic. And Ixalan was entirely because Pirates versus Dinosaurs. Like, it had nothing to do with the story. So, yeah. I don't agree with the decision to have Universes Beyond be part of all formats. I also don't agree with a 2-month release schedule, like every other month release schedule. It's way too much. Personally, I would prefer if it was, instead of once a quarter, if it were 3 times a year. Because here's the thing, is that these are full set releases, which means that to coincide with full set releases, you're still going to have the ancillary products like Modern Horizons and Commander decks, and and obviously the Secret Lair drops and all that other stuff. So it will just be a non-stop fire hose of stuff. And that's too much. It's too much. So, and I also think there should be, for those who don't enjoy Universes Beyond and just want core Magic, there should be formats where that is possible. I certainly, I play mostly Commander these days. I don't mind Commander. I didn't mind Commander being a format where that stuff was in there. Because Commander kind of feels like the catch-all casual format, or at least what is supposed to be the catch-all casual format. But yeah, it's the fact that they will be standard legal is such a surprise and mind-boggling for me. So yeah, as someone who supports Universes Beyond, I don't support the move that's been made. And I think it will just serve to cause people to hate Universes Beyond even more. So, so yeah. But also, I think, and I think it wouldn't have been as bad if they had picked Universes Beyond products that matched the stuff more closely. So I think Final Fantasy is great. You know, I mean, Final Fantasy meshes real well with these sort of more modern Magic sets, like New Capenna and Kamigawa. I think Warhammer was great. Warhammer was a great fit tonally. Lord of the Rings was good. Dungeons and Dragons was fantastic. But Marvel and Spider-Man, you know, I wouldn't mind if the more out there stuff was just Secret Lairs. You know, and if they were either alt arts or whatever. You know, I think I was talking about this with a former co-host of the podcast, Josh York, the other day. World of Warcraft, or just Warcraft in general, I think would be a good fit for like a Universes Beyond product. So if they kept it to this kind of like steampunk fantasy, like steampunk high fantasy, or if they're gonna go sci-fi, fit the vibe, which Warhammer does. Yeah. But yeah, when they start getting further away from it, I think there's going to be more and more pushback. Especially if they make the cards really good. Like we're seeing with the Marvel stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, SpongeBob is just such a weird, bizarre choice. And like I like SpongeBob. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't like SpongeBob, but it's such a weird choice to have picked when there are so many other properties that you could do. Like, and especially like properties with that level of brand recognition that you could go with. So I don't know if it's just whoever said yes to a licensing agreement or what. So separately from this announcement, Wizards of the Coast also established a new commander panel. This time, it's a 17-person panel. It includes some members of the advisory group and the rules committee, which I think is I think is interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily unusual. I think some of the folks who signed up and some of the folks who opted not to come back is pretty interesting. So, one of the notable folks who isn't coming back is Jim from the Spike Feeders. But then also Josh Lee Kwai from the Command Zone, after explosively retiring from the advisory group, is now on this committee. So these people are now paid consultants. So they will be paid and presumably offered, some sort of benefits from working with Wizards. They may also have some sort of contract and agreement. So there was some rumblings that there was like an NDA or not non-disclosure, but like an agreement that had non-disparaging clauses in there. So that'll be interesting. We don't know precisely what's in all of that stuff, but yeah. Yeah. So hopefully with 17 people, it's a little more robust for decision making, and so we'll see how that goes. So yeah. So that's it for Magic the It was a big set of announcements. So we're gonna move on from that. The next couple of ones are just some release dates and things, so we'll get through them pretty quickly. So yeah. Next up, Metal Slug Tactics, November 5th. That's when we're getting it. Game is coming to all consoles and Steam. Looks great. Super excited. Tactical RPG or strategy game. Sorry, not RPG, but tactical strategy game. Sign me up. With a Metal Slug has always had a really awesome art style and art direction to it. And they keep that with this game. So I'm super stoked. I was never really a fan of the series like gameplay wise, just because, side scrolling shooters. But now that it's like a tactics game, sign me up. Very excited for this. And it's coming out soon, next week, I think. Not next week. Following week. So like it's like a week and a half. And for those in the US, it's election day. So yeah. Metal Slug Tactics. Next up, IGN reports that people that got into the Nintendo Online playtest program almost immediately broke the agreement that so Nintendo had requested not to share any information. Immediately broken, and info started leaking. So the playtest appears to be some form of social MMO type game, where you go to like another planet and you are trying to like build a farm and revitalize the land with your farm and use some sort of beacons, and it's a focus on like building and farming and doing that sort of collaborative work. Not really clear if this is intended to be sort of a like server stress test for an upcoming game, if this is intended to be just a tech demo to figure out, again, obviously some sort of server stress testing and server testing, because that's what you do with MMOs. But whether this will end up in a full release or if this is just a tech demo for Nintendo to kind of test their capabilities for other titles, a little unclear. So, and obviously because Nintendo doesn't want anybody to really know outside of who's in the program. So yeah. We'll see. And hopefully me just talking about it is fine. and this video doesn't get taken down. But yeah. So screenshots are still circulating, but they've when they do pop up on social media, they get taken down. So yeah. So that is what's going on with that mysterious playtest. Last bit of news, and my favorite bit of news this week, IGN reports that indie hit Vampire Survivors is getting Castlevania DLC. We did it, folks. Though the folks at Ponkel, they did it. They managed to do it. They got what is I think is like the benchmark, the premier sort of vampire IP in gaming, is if you have a vampire game and you can get I think it's Konami on board with licensing Castlevania to you, you've made it. They're getting a Castlevania DLC expansion, Ode to Castlevania. It's coming on Halloween. It's got, what did they say, 20 new characters and 40 new weapons? It's either that or 40 new characters and 20 new weapons. They've got remixes of the music. It sounds great. It's a great animated, promotional video. I am so happy for the success that this company has had. Because here's the other thing is Vampire Survivors continues the tradition of criminally undercharging people. And obviously not literally criminal, but this expansion is $4. $4 in the US. I didn't look up what the price was another, but it's whatever the exchange rate is. But yeah, for $4, this expansion. And for those who aren't familiar with Vampire Survivors, it's totally worth it. So Vampire Survivors is a game in which you only use movement keys. Your character automatically attacks, and you just fight waves of enemies that are coming at you. You pick up different weapons and items, and those items and weapons can combine together to form new weapons. And the weapons have like different trajectories and effects and hitboxes and stuff. So part of it is like finding out a build and then just seeing if you can make it to 30 minutes. But then there's also like secret bosses and things like that in the levels. It's super fun. So yeah, it's once again it is, in my opinion, one of the best values in gaming, and I will stand by that statement. Vampire Survivors, Stardew Valley, best values. Nothing beats it. Unless I don't know. I mean, you could argue that like free to play stuff that you really enjoy playing, sure, but those also come with riders of all sorts of microtransactions and everything, which these don't have, by the way. Stardew Valley is you pay it once, and everything else has been free. Vampire Survivors is, I think the base game is still like $3, and then the expansions are all basically have as much content as the base game and are about the same price. So, yeah. But yes, Halloween, October 31st, Castlevania coming to Vampire Survivors. It's a Thursday night. Maybe I'll stream it. I don't know. I'm super stoked. It's such a great little game. So, and yeah, and the funny thing was, I was never a Castlevania fan growing up. And I think I've only played one, and it was like after it came to either Switch Online or one of the, the retro or the little consoles. But like, I still understand, like, from seeing it in all the gaming magazines and just being part of the pop culture and everything, I understand that like it is a huge landmark in gaming. Like, it helped to define a genre along with Metroid. And so coupled with like its aesthetic and lore, it's a staple. It's one of the biggest, I think it's one of the most important gaming franchises. So yeah. So it's cool to see that that a lot of indie games that fit the vibe are able to do licensing and to work with it. So, all right, so we're going to end this episode on a high note. There we go. If you would like to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, you can head on over to 8-bitadventures.com. If you'd like to help support that content, you can become a patron at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Big shout out and thank you to all of my current patrons. Our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And with that, we're all finished for this week. So we'll see you next time. So as always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.